Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are cracking open a subject that I think a lot of people find really, really difficult. How to improve your accent naturally. We want to make our speech clearer, more confident, and, maybe even a little more musical.
Right, and we're going to be setting aside some of the, let's say, the drier, more mechanical drills for a bit.
Exactly. And no dusty textbooks today. Instead, we're going to focus on something a bit unexpected, which is the power of storytelling as kind of the ultimate practice tool.
It really is.
Yeah.
This is a deep dive into what you might call organic language acquisition. And the research we've pulled together, it all points to a pretty fundamental shift in how we should approach this.
So not just quick fixes.
No, absolutely not. We're looking for practical techniques that aren't overwhelming, that leverage how the brain is actually designed to pick up fluency and tone.
Okay, so what's our mission today?
The mission is to extract that foundational knowledge, what an accent is, and then give you a way to apply it dynamically in a way that feels natural.
And I think we need to unpack a definition right at the very beginning here. We keep saying natural accent improvement. The sources are so clear on this. This is not about erasure. It's not about losing your identity or your heritage.
Precisely. That is the most important point. It's a journey of refinement, not replacement. When we say natural, we're talking about function.
Function. Okay, what does that mean?
Well, first and foremost, it means clarity and intelligibility. You want your meaning to be immediately accessible to whoever's listening.
Sure, that makes sense.
But maybe the most crucial functional goal is something called reduced listener effort.
I love that concept. I find it so useful.
It's everything.
Because if your rhythm and your stress, the sort of music of your speech, is really different from what the listener is expecting, they have to work so much harder to figure out what you're saying, right?
They're doing double duty. They're trying to decode your content while also mentally translating your rhythm. It's exhausting for them.
And you can feel it when someone is struggling to understand you.
Absolutely. And when you reduce that cognitive strain on the listener, you naturally gain increased confidence. You just know your message is landing the way you intended it to.
And from there, it's about embracing nuance, right? That musicality.
Exactly. You embrace the nuance, which leads to that desired organic growth. You start learning, like you did with your first language, through mindful attention and actually using the language, not just drilling it.
Okay, so that sets the stage perfectly. But before we even think about changing a single thing, we have to understand what an accent actually is. It's so much more complicated than just, mispronouncing a few vowels. It's like this whole symphony of systems working together.
It really is. It's a cumulative effect, a concert of interconnected parts. And for a long, long time, teaching has focused almost entirely on just one component.
Which is?
Phonetics.
Yeah.
The individual sounds, the phones.
So like the English, the sound or the difference between ship and sheep.
Exactly. The building blocks.
Yeah.
And they're important, of course, but they're only the starting point.
Because you can meticulously nail every single individual sound and still sound, very unnatural.
It can sound robotic, in fact, which is why the next layer is so crucial. That layer is phonology.
Phonology. Okay, so what's the difference?
Phonology isn't about the sounds in isolation. It's about the patterns of sound and how they interact and change in fast, connected speech. This is where fluency is really forged.
And this is the stuff that native speakers do completely automatically without even thinking about it.
100%. It includes some really sophisticated processes that learners often miss entirely.
Let's get into those because I think this is where people will have that aha moment.
Okay, so the first process is something called allophones.
Allophones.
It just means variations of the same sound based on its position in a word.
Okay.
Think about the letter P.
Okay.
The P in pin is aspirated. There's a strong puff of air. You can hold your hand in front of your mouth and feel it. Pin.
Right, I can feel that.
But the P in spin has almost no aspiration. Spin.
Oh, wow. Yeah, there's no puff of air.
It's the same phone, the same mental sound, but it's produced differently based on the rule. If you put that big puff of air on the big E in spin, it just sounds wrong.
It sounds off, even if the sound is technically correct. That's a fantastic nuance.
Then you've got assimilation. This is where sounds literally change to become more like the sounds next to them.
Why does that happen?
Our brains are efficient. Or you could say lazy in the best possible way. We want to get our mouths ready for the next sound before we've even finished the current one.
Okay, give me an example.
A classic one is the phrase 10 boys. In casual, fast speech, that N sound at the end of 10, which is made with the tongue behind the teeth, it often shifts to sound more like an M. 10 boys.
10 boys.
Why? Because the M sound is made with the lips, and the very next sound is B in boys, which is also made with the lips. Your mouth is just getting a head start.
That makes so much sense. So if you force out that really clean, perfect N sound, 10 boys it sounds.
It sounds chunky. It breaks the flow.
And the third piece of this phonology puzzle is elision.
Elision is just a fancy word for sounds being dropped entirely.
Yeah.
And recognizing this is absolutely critical for your listening skills.
I can imagine. If you're listening for every single sound, you'll get lost.
Totally. Think of fish and chips. No one says fish and chips.
They say fish and chips.
Fish and chips. The D is gone, or, becomes, the Tet just vanishes. If a non-native speaker insists on perfectly articulating that TID, they're signaling a lack of fluency, even with perfect grammar.
Okay, so phonetics are the sounds, phonology is how they behave in a group. That takes us to the third component, which is stress. And this is a big one.
It's huge. And it's so much more than just being louder. Stress has two critical layers.
Let's start with the first one.
First is word stress. Which syllable inside a single word gets the emphasis?
The classic example is always project versus project.
It's a classic for a reason. The stress placement completely changes the word's meaning and its part of speech, from a noun to a verb.
And the sources we looked at, they really emphasize that getting word stress wrong is one of the fastest ways to become unintelligible.
It is. Even if all your phonetic sounds are perfect, if you say computer instead of computer, the native listener has to pause and mentally reprocess the word. It throws them off completely.
It creates that listener effort you were talking about.
Exactly. Then you have the second, more dynamic layer, which is sentence stress.
This is where you emphasize specific words in a sentence to change the meaning.
Yes. This is where meaning and intent really come to life. Let's take a simple sentence. I didn't say he stole the money.
Okay.
Now let's play with the stress. I didn't say he stole the money. What does that imply?
That someone else did.
Right. Now, I didn't say she stole the money.
That implies someone else said it, but not me.
Exactly. Or, I didn't say he stole the money.
Maybe he just borrowed it.
Or, I didn't say he stole the money.
He stole something else. The jewels.
Right. The words are identical. The grammar is identical. But the musicality, the stress, carries the real message. It's an incredibly powerful tool.
So we have the sounds, the patterns, the emphasis. But before we get to the other elements of flow, we have to talk about the psychology of it.
Yes. The mental game.
Why is this so hard? If these are the rules, why can't we just learn them and apply them?
It's a fascinating cognitive question. Accents aren't just superficial habits you can shrug off. They are deeply, deeply ingrained because of how our brains develop.
You're talking about those critical periods in childhood?
Yes. Our brains use a principle called perceptual narrowing. When you're an infant, your brain can hear and distinguish all the sounds of all human languages. It's incredible.
Oh.
But as you grow and are exposed to only your native language, your brain starts to filter out the sounds that it decides are irrelevant. It specializes. It prunes those neural pathways.
So my brain literally trained itself not to hear the difference between, say, a French you and oo because it wasn't useful for English.
Precisely. So trying to learn new sounds and new rhythms later in life isn't just about moving your tongue differently. It's a major cognitive overhaul. You're trying to regrow or reactivate those pruned pathways.
It's an auditory challenge before it's even a motor challenge?
That's a perfect way to put it. And on top of that, you have the identity component, which we can't ignore.
An accent is a marker of who you are, where you come from, your community.
It's a huge part of your story. So trying to change it can feel, on a subconscious level, like a betrayal of that identity. It can feel like you're putting on a costume.
So given that intense mental and emotional effort, what is the right mindset to bring to this?
It has to be a mindset of self-compassion and curiosity. This is not about fixing something that's broken.
Right.
It's about expanding your linguistic toolkit. You are adding a new tool, a new way of communicating, not throwing the old one away.
I love that reframe. Toolkit expansion, not identity erasure.
Yes. And that mental shift is the absolute bedrock, which leads perfectly into our next section, because the very first tool we have to sharpen isn't in our mouth, it's in our ears.
Active listening.
Active listening is the gatekeeper. And the core principle is so simple, but so often overlooked. You cannot produce what you cannot perceive.
Which, after what you just said about perceptual narrowing, makes a ton of sense. We have to retrain our brains to even hear these new sounds properly before we can hope to make them.
Exactly. Our listening goal here has to go way beyond just understanding the words. It needs to be analytical.
What are we listening for, specifically?
A few things. First, you have to train your ear to discriminate between those very subtle, similar sounds. The ship versus sheep thing is a classic minimal pair for a reason.
Sure.
Second, and maybe more importantly, you have to learn to hear the music. You have to stop focusing only on the words and start paying attention to the rhythm, the stress patterns, the intonation, the melody of the language.
So if I'm listening to a news report, I shouldn't just be getting the information. I should be thinking, okay, where did the reporter's voice go up? Where did it go down? Which words did they punch?
Yes. And third, you have to consciously observe linking and reductions. You have to train your ear to accept what are you going to do as the correct and natural pronunciation of what are you going to do.
Because if your ear is still waiting for the fully articulated version, it'll reject the natural version as messy or wrong.
And your mouth will never try to make a sound your ear thinks is wrong. It's a closed loop.
The sources gave us a really practical, structured way to do this. They called it the sound detective exercise.
The sound detective is fantastic because it brings discipline to your listening. You take a short audio clip, maybe 1 or 2 minutes of something clear.
Like a podcast segment.
A podcast segment, a news report, a TED Talk, and you listen to it multiple times, but each time with a different mission.
Okay, walk me through it. Step 1.
Step 1 is easy. Just listen for comprehension, get the gist, understand what's being said. Then, step 2, you immediately listen again. But this time, you ignore the words. You can even close your eyes. You are listening only for the intonation, the melody.
Where does the pitch rise? Where does it fall?
Is it a statement with a falling pitch? A yes-no question with a rising one? Are they conveying excitement with a higher pitch range? You're just tracing the musical contour.
Okay, that's a cool idea. What's step 3?
Step 3, you listen again. Now, you focus only on rhythm and stress. Which words are popping out? It'll be the nouns, the main verbs, the important words, and how are the little words, the function words, being squished and swallowed in between those beats.
So you're finding the beat of the sentence.
You're finding the beat. And then step 4 is the microscope. You pick one specific thing you know you struggle with. Maybe it's the sound or the way going to becomes gonna.
Can you listen to that 1 or 2 minute clip again, just for that one tiny element?
Over and over. How is it being produced? Where does it appear? You're transforming passive listening into a really active analytical training session for your brain.
That feels so much more productive than just having the radio on in the background. Okay, so once the ear is getting sharper, what does the daily practice actually look like? The sources lay out these 5 pillars of practice.
They do, and it's a holistic framework. Each pillar supports the others. The first 2 are basically what we've just been talking about, immersion and active listening.
Right, they're kind of inseparable.
They are. Immersion is about creating that language bubble for yourself. But there's a key distinction we need to make.
Between passive and active immersion.
Exactly. Passive immersion is having the language on in the background. It's useful, it helps your ear get used to the general cadence and rhythm, but active immersion is where the real learning happens.
And that means you're engaged with it. Reading subtitles while you watch a show, or, and this is a big one, reading something aloud.
Reading aloud is so powerful. It forces your brain to connect the visual symbol of the word to the sound and the motor action of producing it.
Okay, so that's pillar 1 and 2. What's the third pillar?
The third is mimicry and shadowing. Now, mimicry is straightforward, right? You hear something, you copy it.
Like a parrot.
Like a parrot. But shadowing. Shadowing is the advanced technique. It's the high leverage skill.
Explain what that is, exactly.
Shadowing is where you speak at the same time as the native speaker you're listening to. You're trying to be their shadow, matching their pace, their rhythm, their intonation, everything in real time.
That sounds incredibly difficult.
It is. It's very demanding. But it's arguably the single most efficient way to build that muscle memory for fluency. It forces your ear, your brain, and your mouth to all sync up simultaneously.
And there's a right way and a wrong way to do it, I assume.
Oh, absolutely. The sources give a very clear step-by-step method. First, choose good material. To think clear, not too fast. News reports are often perfect.
Then what?
Then listen to it once just to understand the content. After that, you do a listen and repeat, sentence by sentence. This is like the warm-up, focusing on getting the pronunciation just right.
And then comes the main event, the simultaneous shadowing.
That's step 4. You play the audio and you speak along with it, trying to stay perfectly in sync, like a simultaneous translator.
But the next step is the one that people probably skip.
I guarantee it. Step 5 is record and compare. This is non-negotiable. You have to record your own voice while you're shadowing.
Why is that so important?
Because while you're speaking, you can't accurately hear yourself. Your brain hears what you intended to say. It's only when you listen back to the recording, comparing it to the original, that you'll catch the subtle differences in pitch or timing.
And the final step is to be specific.
Right. Dedicate some sessions to shadowing for just one thing. Maybe for 10 minutes, you only care about matching the rhythm. Or the next 10, you only care about matching the intonation. You break the huge task down into manageable pieces.
That makes sense. Okay, what's the fourth pillar?
The fourth is repetition, muscle memory, and feedback. This pillar acknowledges that accent work is physical training.
You're training your mouth, Jim. Your articulators.
Exactly. The tongue, the lips, the jaw. You're teaching them to make new shapes and movements automatically. Just like the gym, consistency is everything.
Short, focused, daily practice is better than one long session a week.
Exponentially better. This is where things like targeted drills and tongue twisters can be really useful. If you struggle with these sound drilled, drilling, red lorry, yellow lorry, over and over, actually builds that specific muscle coordination.
But drills alone aren't enough. We need feedback.
The feedback loop is essential. And this brings us back to that cognitive blind spot. We can't hear our own accents accurately in real time.
So the first and most honest feedback tool is
your phone's voice recorder. The source is called the brutally honest mirror. You just have to get over the cringe of hearing your own voice and listen analytically without judgment.
And beyond that, human feedback.
Human feedback is invaluable. A patient friend, a language exchange partner, or, if you're serious about it, a qualified accent coach. An app can tell you that you said a sound wrong. A good coach can tell you why.
Maybe your jaw is too tense or your tongue is in the wrong spot.
Precisely. They give you the diagnosis that technology can't. And that brings us to the fifth and final pillar, which is really about creating the right emotional state for learning.
Which is?
Embracing imperfection. The goal is effective communication, not native-like perfection. Chasing perfection leads to fear and stops you from speaking. Embracing good enough communication leads to practice and fluency.
That's a great summary of the framework. So we've got the mindset, we've got the practice pillars. Now let's go back and dissect the actual instruments that make the music of the language.
Okay, let's get into the specifics of the sounds and the flow.
We talked about stress, but we skipped over a few other key musical elements. Let's start with rhythm. You mentioned English is a stress-timed language. What does that actually mean for a learner?
It's probably the biggest structural difference between English and many other languages. In a stress-timed language, the rhythm is determined by the stressed syllables, which appear at roughly regular intervals.
Like a drum beat. Ba, B-A, ba-ba, ba-B-A.
A perfect analogy. And to keep that beat steady, all the little unstressed syllables in between have to get squished, rushed, and reduced.
And this is totally different from a syllable-timed language.
Totally different. In syllable-timed languages like Spanish, French, or Japanese, every syllable gets roughly the same amount of time. Da-da-da-da-da-da. It's very even.
So if a Spanish speaker brings that even syllable-timed rhythm to English,
even if their pronunciation of every single word is perfect, their speech will sound mechanical, maybe a bit staccato, to an English-speaking ear, because they've broken the fundamental rhythmic rule of the language.
which is that the small words have to get swallowed.
They have to get swallowed. Which brings us to the most important sound in the English language for creating that rhythm.
The mighty schwa.
The mighty ubiquitous schwa, that little unstressed us sound. It's the sound that almost all vowels in unstressed syllables reduce to.
We hear it in words like about or sofer,
But it's everywhere. Think of a word like banana.
banana.
We stress the middle syllable, right?
Yeah.
So what happens to the other two A's?
They become schwas. Bonenu.
Exactly. They aren't a clean ah sound. But you say banana. It sounds unnatural. Mastering the schwa is non-negotiable for natural rhythm.
And this ties directly back to sentence stress and the difference between content words and function words.
It does. Let's define those really clearly. Content words carry the main meaning. Nouns, main verbs, adjectives, adverbs. These are the words we stress, the BAs in your drum beat.
And function words are the grammatical glue.
The little words, articles like the, prepositions like in, on, at, auxiliary verbs like is, can, do. These are the unstressed bays.
And the rule is you stress the content words and reduce the function words offered to a schwa.
Precisely. A learner might say, I can go to the store. A native speaker says, I can go to the store. The function words almost disappear. If you stress them, it sounds very deliberate, almost like you're angry or being sarcastic.
Okay, so that's rhythm. What about intonation?
Intonation is the melody, the rise and fall of your pitch. This is how you signal your intent and emotion.
So we have some general rules for this, right?
We do. Generally, we use falling intonation at the end of statements. I'm going home. The pitch drops. And also for why questions like, where did you go?
But it's the opposite for yes-no questions.
Right. For yes-no questions, we use rising intonation. Are you ready? The pitch goes up at the end. We also use rising intonation to show doubt or surprise or to signal that we haven't finished our thought yet.
If your intonation is flat, even if everything else is perfect, you'll sound
robotic, disinterested. The emotional meaning is lost.
And the final piece for creating that smooth, natural flow is linking and reductions.
This is how we get rid of that chunky word-by-word sound. Linking is just connecting words together so they flow like one long word.
The most common type is connecting a consonant sound to a vowel sound, right?
Yes. Pick it up. Doesn't sound like three separate words. The K from pick jumps over and attaches to it. The T from it jumps to up.
So it becomes picky tup.
Piggy tup.
Exactly. Or when a word ends in a vowel and the next one starts with a vowel, like go away, we often insert a little row sound to bridge the gap. Go away.
And the reductions are those forms we talked about. Gonna, wanna.
Gonna, wanna, hafta for have to, shoulda for should have. These aren't slang. They are standard features of spoken English, and you have to master them to sound fluent.
We've built the whole foundation. We have the mindset, the practice pillars, the anatomy of the language. Now we get to the secret weapon.
The golden thread.
Why is storytelling so uniquely powerful for tying all of this together?
Because it's holistic. It's the opposite of isolated drills. When you tell a story, you are forced to integrate all 7 of those components we talked about. Phonetics, phonology, stress, rhythm, intonation, linking all at once.
And you're doing it in a meaningful context.
A meaningful, emotional, and social context. You can drill the sound for an hour, but that's just a physical exercise. When you tell a story about the 3rd time you went to the theater, you're using the sound for its actual purpose. Communication. It also solves the motivation problem, doesn't it? Rote drills are boring.
Terribly boring. They're hard to stick with. But telling a story is inherently engaging. You're creating something.
Yeah.
That keeps you coming back.
And stories have a natural rhythm to them.
They demand natural pacing and pausing.
Yeah.
You speed up when you describe the action. You pause for dramatic effect right before the surprise. This is real-world rhythm training, not textbook timing.
But the biggest piece, I think, is the emotion.
It has to be. Stories are all about emotion. And to convey that emotion, suspense, joy, frustration, you have to manipulate your pitch, your volume, your pace. This is what stops you from sounding flat and robotic.
It forces you to use intonation for its intended purpose.
Exactly. And finally, even if you're just practicing by yourself, the act of telling a story fosters audience awareness. You're subconsciously thinking, is this clear? Is this engaging? Which reinforces that primary goal of reducing listener effort.
So it's like a full body workout for your accent.
That's the perfect way to describe it.
Okay, this is where we get really actionable. The sources give us 4 specific storytelling exercises that people can start using today. Let's break them down.
Let's do it.
Exercise 1 is the retold tale. What's the specific goal here?
The goal is to master rhythm and intonation. What's interesting is that you're not focused on the exact words. You're trying to mimic the musical pattern of the original speaker.
Okay, how does it work?
You listen to a short story or anecdote. You shadow it a few times, really focusing on the melody. And then you retell the story in your own words.
But you try to apply the original speaker's intonation pattern to your new sentences.
Precisely. So if the original speaker used a rising intonation to build suspense before the final sentence, you try to create that same rising melody in your version, even with different words. You record yourself and compare the musical shape of your retelling to the original.
That's a really sophisticated exercise. I like that. Okay, exercise 2, dialogue dynamo.
This one is all about developing your emotional and vocal range. It's about flexibility.
And it involves playing different characters.
Yes. You find a short piece of dialogue from a book, a movie, a play, and you read all the parts aloud, but you really commit to it. You experiment. How would a very shy character say this line? How would a very angry, commanding character say the same line?
You mentioned before that exaggeration is actually helpful here at the start.
It's critical. By pushing your voice to be overly dramatic or angry or excited, you discover the upper and lower limits of your pitch and volume. You're stretching the vocal muscles.
So you build the flexibility needed for the more subtle shifts in everyday conversation.
Exactly. You can't make a subtle shift if your voice is stuck in one narrow monotone band.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Exercise 3 is my day, my story. This one feels very personal and practical.
It is. The goal here is to develop your own natural conversational flow, using the vocabulary and topics that are actually relevant to your life.
So at the end of the day, you just tell a story from your day, out loud.
You pick one interesting thing that happened. A frustrating call with customer service. A funny thing you saw on the train. And you narrate it aloud, as if you were telling a friend.
And of course you record it.
Always record it, then listen back. When you talked about the frustrating part, did your voice actually sound frustrated? Did you use natural pauses? You listened for the disconnect between the emotion you felt and the emotion you conveyed? Then you try again, trying to smooth it out.
And the final one, the micro-story challenge.
This exercise is about clarity and impact under pressure.
You give yourself a really strict word limit, like 50 or 100 words, and you have to tell a complete story.
Right. It forces you to be incredibly efficient with your language. Every word has to count. And because it's so short, your delivery of stress and intonation is critical for making an impact quickly.
You have to stress the right content words and swallow the function words, or you'll run out of time.
Like a fantastic test of everything we've talked about, all in one tiny, powerful package.
Okay, as we start to wrap this up, let's talk about the roadblocks. What are the common pitfalls people fall into?
The biggest one, by far, is the trap of perfectionism. Aiming to sound 100% native is a recipe for disaster.
It just leads to fear, right? You become afraid to even open your mouth.
It leads to paralysis.
Right.
The solution, as we said, is to reframe the goal. The goal is clarity. The goal is confident connection. Your unique, clear voice is an asset, not something to be erased.
What's another common pitfall?
Inconsistency. People get really motivated, practice for 2 hours on a Saturday, and then do nothing for 2 weeks.
And accent improvement is a physical skill. It needs constant reinforcement.
It's like going to the gym. 15, 20 minutes of focused daily practice will build those neural pathways and muscle memory far more effectively than one long, infrequent session.
And the third pitfall, which we've really hammered home.
Ignoring the music. Focusing only on the individual phonetic sounds and forgetting about intonation and rhythm. This leads to speech that might be technically correct but sounds completely flat and unnatural.
The solution being the shadowing and storytelling exercises we just covered.
Actively prioritize the music. It's what will make the biggest difference fastest.
So let's quickly touch on the tools that can help people stay consistent and get good feedback.
Technology is your friend here. First, your phone's voice recorder. Use it relentlessly. It is your single best tool for self-assessment.
There are also dedicated apps now.
A lot of great pronunciation apps that can give you instant feedback on specific words or phrases, and online dictionaries, especially ones like Forvo, are amazing because you can hear a word pronounced by multiple native speakers from different regions.
But technology has its limits.
It does, which is why the human connection is still so important. A good accent coach or speech therapist can diagnose problems an app will never catch. They can see that your jaw is tense or tell you exactly how to reshape your tongue for the English R.
It's that personalized diagnosis.
It is. And even just a language exchange partner gives you that real-time conversational practice that is so, so valuable.
This has been such a comprehensive deep dive. I feel like we've really built a new model for this. It's not about drills, it's about performance.
It is. It starts with retraining your ear, shifting your mindset, building a consistent practice through those 5 pillars. And then it all culminates in the holistic, dynamic practice of storytelling.
Because stories force you to integrate everything, the rhythm, the stress, the emotion, into the real art of human connection.
Exactly. It takes all the mechanical pieces and puts them in service of a meaningful message.
And I think it's so important to end on this note. Your voice is your instrument for connection. The goal here is clarity, which builds confidence. It is not about erasing who you are.
Please remember that. So many of the world's most effective and charming communicators have clear, beautiful, unique, non-native accents. Clarity is the target, not imitation.
So with that in mind, here is a final thought for you to explore this week. We've talked about all these technical skills. Now, I want you to think about your next completely ordinary conversation. Maybe you're just describing your commute home or what you bought at the grocery store. How can you consciously integrate the practice of emotional shadowing into that simple story? How can you use your voice, your pitch, your pace to intentionally convey the boredom or the frustration or the tiny moment of joy in that everyday narrative? Go out there and start telling your story.